What's going on, everybody? It is your man Cleveland Terry, and today we are going to quickly talk about the new released Pioneer DJ DJM S5. This is the baby slash entry level, medium level DJ mixer from Pioneer DJ. Let's talk about it. Okay, once again, thank you guys for hanging out. If you're new here, this is what we do. We discuss all things DJ. That includes gig logs, tips and tricks, and obviously hardware reviews. And then my live Wake Up in Cleveland show every Thursday where we discuss anything that you need help on technically as a DJ, business, everything. So we're going to talk a little bit about the S5 here. Now, I got the S5 a couple days ago. I saw it at NAMM, and I'm going to actually probably intersplice some NAMM footage in this video, but I'm gonna tell you this right off the bat. It is a good mixer, specifically a good entry-level mixer, because as a beginning DJ, you're getting a lot of power in this box that you wouldn't get in some other ones. Now, of course, we're gonna compare the number one thing that looks a lot like this, and that's the new Mark Scratch. And while yes, they are similar, the new Mark Scratch is cheaper. However, we're talking a few years actually older than this model, and this model has brought on some new things that I think a lot of people are going to like. Well, anybody that's using a computer from the last 5 years, I should say. And that's what we'll talk about first, because I think this is one of the most important parts. There is now USB-C on the mixer. I believe this is the first mixer to include USB-C, but also it is hopefully the start of a paradigm shift where all the DJ companies are starting to move over to USB-C. It's very necessary. We need it. If you've seen my Mixon 8 review, you'll notice that that one has USB-C also. So this is a trend that we're moving into, and I really, really appreciate it. I hope more manufacturers come out with the USB-C versions.
This mixer is bus powered. It has no power supply. It is literally direct to the computer, powered by the computer.
Gotcha. Okay.
There's a second port on it. It's not for another computer, but if you want an independent power supply, you can use that. So let's say you're not using a computer,
right?
You're using a portable, you can use it, you can do that with this mixer.
Okay.
And what's cool about being USB Type-C powered, you can use a battery bank that is 5 volts, 1 amp, basically what you use with your cell phone to power this mixer. So if you have a battery-powered portable turntable, you can go out in the forest and start scratching.
Okay, that's really, really cool.
I used this a couple days ago at an event where I had the S5 and the LC6000s on my event. Ran them all right off of my computer. Did not have a single problem whatsoever. As a matter of fact, I ran them all off my computer until I needed to plug in my power source. If you're rocking any of these newer MacBooks, the 14 or the new 16, you're not gonna have any problem powering this. And that's probably one of the coolest things about it, because it is USB powered. This is all you need. As far as the mixer is concerned, now the mixer gives you what I consider to be kind of standard features nowadays. I'm not gonna talk about pro level or not, it's just standard features that are necessary on every mixer out there. First of all, there are Xlr Main Outputs and an RCA main output. You do have RCA booths. I would have preferred a 1/4 inch, but at this price point, it seems like the booth typically is an RCA for whatever reason. And then you have your channel RCAs, and followed by your microphone, which is an XLR combo jack. Even as an entry level, I think all entry level devices should have at least XLR mains and an XLR mic input. That's just the standard now. And let's turn it to the front so you can see what's going on there. We have your standard 1/4 inch input for your headphone jack, and then the mini jack, followed by your fader control for your crossfader, allowing you to change the actual feel, the resistance of the fader. Then you have your aux knob, followed by your mic knob. Now, one of the things that I don't love is that this particular board has a combo jack microphone. Thank you. But there is no tone on the mic. So I use this, like I said, on my event. And while the sound is good, I didn't have any problems with the actual volume. I have a very thick sounding voice. And I noticed right off the bat, it would have been great if I could have just had a little tone knob to kind of take some of that low end off. especially for people like me that are doing multiple events and I have multiple people on the microphone. It's really nice to be able to kind of make those kind of quick adjustments. We do have a fader control feeling adjust because on this board, they've put on a Magville Fader. Now, I'm a big fan of the Magville Fader. I use it on obviously in the S11, the Rev 7. I just think it's just a really, really quality fader. Yes, there are other faders out there, the anal faders, the infinity faders. If you're using Rain, you got the Mac 4s. There's a lot of great faders out there, but I can tell you this, you don't need to really update this fader. And I think as an entry-level mixer is concerned, that's really, really an amazing starting point for anybody just coming on board. Now, price-wise, when I keep saying entry-level, it's a little over $800. So not necessarily entry-level for a DJ product. It's kind of middle of the road there. I mean, you have your Numark scratches, which are around 500. That's what I would consider entry-level. However, again, the Numark scratch came out at a different time period. The prices were different. Inflation was different. Everything was a little different. So all the costs have gone up across the board. So obviously you're going to see some price increases on the mixer too. Let's look at the top down and let's take a look at what we have here. Obviously we have our switchable lines here, and then you have your 3-band EQ, your master level, your booth, and then your actual physical controls to control your Serato. And you get your loads, your instant doubles, your prepare, etc. These things are nice to have on the board, especially if you're used to using an S7 or an S11, even an S9. So you have your full band EQ with full kill. And then you have your filter. Now, let's talk about the effects real quick. Obviously, we know that once you get to this price point, for the most part, Serato effects are what is used. You're not going to get any external effects, and the same applies to this board. You do have your standard Serato effects, 3 buttons on one side, 3 buttons on the other. They're all adjustable. You can decide and customize exactly what effects that you want on each button. They sound like Serato effects.
But you do Serato internal effects. You can layer up to 3,
Okay.
which is something unique about it. So if you want to do, let's just do flanger. But if you want to add an echo with your flanger.
Okay. So it seems like you've taken the good parts of like the S7, because the S7 had the dual pad mode, but the S11 does not. So being able to activate 2 of them, so that's great.
Moving down, you do have your normal paddles, and they feel pretty much just like the S7 paddles, the S9 paddles. They're all pretty much the same. They feel good. This little line right here, you would think that this was actually a lit paddle, but it's not. It is literally just a sticker overlay. What I did notice is that in the dark room, when I was using it and I flipped on my effects, I did notice that I kept forgetting to turn them off. And I kept forgetting to turn them off because you can't see them in the dark. Let's talk about the options underneath the buttons. Now, normally speaking, on a higher end mixer, you'd probably have the fader reverse and the sharp and soft curve as a knob right on the panel. You don't have that on here. So for a lot of people, they know to go into Serato to make those changes. Well, you don't have to make those changes there. If you want a sharp curve, you can set it right from the buttons, right on the faceplate. You just have to know that when you are playing your song, you just have to hold down shift and hit the button. So this is crossfader reverse. Now there's no more music on this side. It's on this side. Now as far as your curve, hold down shift. We'll do sharp real quick. And let's go into your regular curve. And you see the blending.
You've probably seen it online. There's the beginner function of a scratch cutter effect. Right. So scratch cutter is basically an effect where it's doing the crossfader cuts for you.
The same thing that's on the Rev 1.
Similar to the Rev 1,
okay,
except first time on DVS. When you first turn it on, the effects button's lit up.
Yeah.
You're in effects mode. Hold any of the buttons. When they turn off, you're in scratch cutter mode. It's in the paddles this time, not a pad mode like the Rev 1. When I trigger this, I got my forward scratch.
Right.
And when you, just like on the Rev 1, when you start using the crossfader, it actually stops doing the scratch cutter so you can help, you know, it helps you learn. So
Gotcha.
And you got other ones, military scratch. And then you got
Right.
original scratch. Here's a cool thing on it that it doesn't have on, like, it's different from the Rev 1.
Right.
You can control, you can half time or double time the tempo of the scratch cutter using the B buttons.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
nice. Okay. All right.
So, and because they're on the paddles, you can do momentary, you can do momentary triggering of the scratch cutter.
That's kind of cool.
I will say this, there's more button memory that you have to use on this device, and we'll show you in a minute what I'm talking about. It's not as easy as going, okay, I'll just hit this button, and this button is the button that does the thing. There's always like a first and a second and a third option on the button, so it can be a little confusing if you're just kind of getting into it before you really get to know it. Let's drop down to the pads, and you have 4 pads on each side, kind of like the S9. Looks very much like the S9. And this actually threw me when I first got the device, because I'm thinking it'll be just an S9, it's a cheaper version. I get it, I understand why they did it. But they did do something that's better, and that is all of these pad modes are separate. So this mode and this mode, if you hit the mode button, let me load another song in here. If you want to make modifications on this side, like, hey, I'm on hot Q on this side, but I want my loop roll to be on this side. You just hold the mode button and then your options pop up. Now it's highlighting that it's in hot Q. So if we click over to this one, we're now in loop roll. It's kind of like using the tone play option. So when you hold on the button, it shows you what cue point that you're currently on, and then you have to kind of choose that cue point, and then you can do your tone play. Very similar to that. I do like that because, as you can see, we do have separate pads, and that's really, really important to me, especially in 2022. You got your hot cues, your roll, your auto loop, and your sampler, and then underneath here, you got your gate cue, your cue loop, your saved loop, and your scratch bank. Now, in order to get to your bottom options here, you're supposed to be able to hold down mode and shift, and then you can select this one, and now you're in your gate cue, or now you're in your save loops, or now you're in your cue loops, or your scratch bank. But there is an option. If you go into your S5 settings and go under preferences tab, you can turn on the option that says enable pad mode switching by pressing the pad mode buttons multiple times. That means that I can just hold down mode and then click through to get to where I want to get to. Love that option there. Now, there are only 4 pads on each side. However, you can adjust them by just hitting the pads 5 through 8, and then it will change them to if there are additional pads on here. You can also make changes in the device. There's kind of a secondary changes for like true customization. For instance, there's no split cue button or switch on the box, but if you go into the settings and you make some modifications, you can activate the split cue. And there's several other features that are in there. I'm not going to go into detail about that now, but a lot of things that maybe may seem like they're not there, they might be there. There is a low cut on the microphone, but like I said, it's not the same as having an actual tone knob to make sweeping changes. It's like a off or on type thing, and I need something that adjusts. The bread and butter of this device is the Magville Fader, and this is where I think you're going to get a lot of non-beginners interested in this device because of the fact that it is USB powered. I think this mixer is going to be very popular among that community because of the bus powered mixer. As far as the up faders, they're fine. They don't have an adjustable curve on the up faders. All right, I think I've hit all the main portions here. There's probably only one other thing that I'd want to mention, and that is the output of the board itself. Now, it does not sound bad. Okay, first off, it's a very good sounding board. The only issue with it is that it doesn't put out as much power as some of your other boards out there. It's definitely a lower volume. Doesn't mean it's bad. It just means that that's something you're gonna have to deal with. when you plug it into something, making sure that you have more power coming out of the speakers, or you crank the knob all the way up. But sound wise, when I did the party a couple days ago, it sounded fine. I believe the board is a little over $800, 800, I think it's 839 or something like that. And at this price point, if you were looking at other mixers, there aren't a lot of dedicated mixers that I think have as much quality as this. Now, of course, you could get the new Mark Scratch. Nothing wrong with the new Mark Scratch. If you were looking at that price point, I would just save up a little bit and maybe pick this one up. Now, if you were looking at this and saying, I got this because it's just as good as an S7, I think you would be in the wrong, and you should probably just buy the S7. This is definitely a beginner to intermediate mixer. For a lot of people just starting out, this is a great mixer to have. I think it's probably one of the better mixers to have, because not only does it provide you with like quality faders and pads and the split pads and all those things, but it is kind of setting you up to move into these higher mixers. Or if you go to a club and you're using an S7 or an S11, you can move from one point to the other without much stress. So I think this is a good gateway drug, so to speak. But if you're on the fence and you have the money, you get the S7. It's not even a thought in my mind. You get the S7. And I would say get the S7 over the S9, to be honest with you at this point. Just sound quality alone, you get the S7 or you get the S11 if you're balling like that. Let me know in the chat below what you're using as far as your mixer, or if this is something that interests you. I want to thank pre-owned Joni for taking the time out of his busy day at NAMM to have a little interview with me and to really break down the specs of this device. It was fantastic, and it was really great seeing him for the first time. And hope here's to many, many more. All right, if you found what I said here useful, hit that like button. If you found what I said here really useful, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you follow me on the Instagrams and the Twitters. Get on my Discord, because that's where we're talking about all things Cleveland. Terry, guys, girls, always a pleasure. If I don't talk to you later, we'll talk soon. Peace.